Happy New Year, Rhody Nation. We have a great guest tonight, Tyrone McKittrick. We're going to be talking about 2024 Rhody recruit, Ben Hammond. He's a three-star recruit. He's from the DMV, and no, the DMV does not stand for Department of Motor Vehicles. We've had some jokes about that. Let's cut that out. So, Tyler, tell me about Ben Hammond. Should we be excited? I'm already excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben Hammond is somebody to be excited about. You're getting a player that knows how to win, that has won everywhere he has been, and he's going to come in. He's going to play the point guard position for you, and he's going to know how to play that position. So, I think that every team, regardless of what conference you're playing in, needs and wants a real point guard, and that's who you're getting with him.
Now, when I was watching a lot of videotape, I could see he could do many things. He's obviously is a great playmaker, but I saw him pop a few threes. He goes to the hoop, some acrobatic shots. What are some of his strengths in his game?
With his strengths, I think first and foremost, he's an ultimate competitor. So he's a guy that's going to elevate your program just in practice alone. I mean, he's going to bring it in every day, day in and day out. He's going to be consistent. He's going to strive to get better and better. He's going to listen. He's going to do his job. Coach Miller and the rest of the guys, they're not going to have to coach his energy. Okay. He's a guy that's going to bring it every day because here in the DMV area, you have to do that. If you don't bring it every day, you're going to get yourself handed to you. So, that's one thing that I would point out with him immediately. As far as his game, you mentioned some of his strengths already. Playmaking, big shot making. He's got big game experience. That's one big thing that's really important for an incoming freshman that's going to be looked to play minutes right away. He's got that big game experience. He's been playing on varsity for 4 years with Paul VI. They play a national schedule. They play all over the country. They traveled to England last year. They play all the nationally ranked teams. He's won 2 Peach Jams in a row on the Nike EYBL circuit. I don't know if people even realize that about him. He won it on the 16 and under level. And then over the summer, they won it on the 17 and under level.
And who made the shot, the final shot, underhand scoop shot? He did it. Huh?
He can really, I'm telling you, he steps up in the big moments. He plays when the brightest lights are on. So, those are just some of the things that you can look forward to. But, when you talk about his strengths, Scott, it's more than just those big things. It's the intangibles that he brings as well, the basketball IQ, the feel for the game. He's got great game management skills that he's developed over 4 years. So they're the things that you want out of your floor general as well.
It's like he's played for a Division I school for a couple of years, at least. The talent-wise on his team, practice, and on the teams he's played against are the best teams in high school. Isn't that correct?
Top notch. He plays in the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference, better known as the WCAC. So that is, thought of as, the best, if not one of the best high school conferences in the country year in and year out.
How are they doing this year, Paul VI? The championship is the only option with that school.
It's the only option. They're doing very well. They have weathered the storm of losing their big man. He's a blue chip big man. He's going to Duke and he broke his foot. So he's been out all year. But they're doing just fine. They're 9-1, I believe. They've defeated 4 out of 5 nationally ranked opponents. The only one that they lost to was Montverde Academy, which was number 1 in the country.
Let's take a little break and go to a video for 30 seconds on the Peach Jam Festival last year, where he really brought it, didn't he?
He definitely brought it.
Mobile, skilled, good face-up game. Harris. Hammond in the lane. Kick out, open look for 3. A 9-0 run for Vegas Elite to give them their first lead of the game, and it was short. Gotta find Harris, right? Here he is. Harris, heat check. Oh, come on! Peach Jam title game. see who went. Hammond high off the window. Hammond.
Well, that's something else. It makes me want him to go on the team this year. We really need someone with his hands. We don't have that guy who steals the ball, the slight 5'11" guy like we had with Fats Russell that's low to the ground.
Yeah.
We really need that, and I noticed that this year, defensive wise, we don't have that play that we saw in the Peach Jam where he stripped the guy of the ball. What are we seeing on that video there? It looks like one of those passes was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that video really highlighted, some of the strengths that we discussed earlier. And, he plays on both sides of the ball. You're mentioning his hand speed, his hand-eye coordination. That's what he does. He plays on both sides of the ball. When you got a young point guard that's getting ready to move up in level, play on the college level, the first thing that you kind of you think about is, can he play on the defense end? Can he guard? And I think that it's okay to start there with Hammond. He's 5'10", 5'11", doesn't have a huge frame or anything like that. But, as an old teammate of mine used to tell me, you can't catch, you can't push what you can't catch, or you can't hit what you can't catch. And that's kind of him. And when it comes to the defensive end, I mean, he's scrappy. He's everything that you want in a small guard on the defense end. He's scrappy. He pressures the ball. He's feisty. He can guard on the perimeter as an individual or as a part of a bigger whole. He understands team defensive concepts very well. That goes back to his basketball IQ. He's got that quickness and lateral movement. We mentioned the hands. Mm-hmm. So he's just very wily. He's very savvy. He's been playing against the best competition in the country for the last 4 years. So he knows how to handle himself on that end as well. There's going to be a learning curve, just like always. There's going to be an adjustment period. You want to be able to see him guard against some of the more physically imposing guards in the A-10, of course, and even in the non-conference games. Those are always things that you're going to want to see, because when you're stepping up into college basketball now, as well as I do, you're playing against grown men most nights. You're playing against 23, 24-year-olds now. So there's a big difference there. And, whenever you're moving up in level, defense is an area that you're going to want to be able to prove yourself in again.
He reminds me of Fats Russell to some extent. Now, is he really 5'11"? Yeah, Fats Russell was 5'10", but was he 5'7"? He was 165, but was he maybe 145?
Yeah, I think that Hammond's probably around 5'10", if I had to guess. But I would say that's probably about right, 5'10". I don't have a tape measure.
Yeah. Well, that's a Simon for you. When you get next game, can you get a tape measure and what's the right? You won't notice. You told me he's so focused in the game, he won't even see you.
No, I'm glad you noticed that, because that is him. He's very even keeled. He's stoic. Yeah. And that's another desirable trait that you want in your point guard. Somebody that's not getting too high or too low.
And when I say, are you familiar with Fats Russell from Rhode Island?
I am. Yeah. And he transferred here to Maryland.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he
did. And he had a swag.
He did.
I think that Ben has that same swag. Do you see that? Or is there a difference between the two?
I think it's a confidence. They carry themselves with confidence, and they believe in themselves. I think with Hammond, he's got a very, very strong belief in his ability, and that shows through, because he's playing on the biggest stages with the best players. And every time you see him play, he's going to have a bad game every now and then. He's human, but you watch him play and you say he belongs out there. And, if you're comparing him to Fats Russell, I would say that they have different games. Russell was a little more aggressive offensively, looking for his shot, where, Hammond, I always say that one of his biggest strengths is his ability to understand what his team needs from him from situation to situation. Sometimes they might need him to step up and be more aggressive scoring the ball, And other times they might need him to be more of a distributor and run the offense or run the show and play with pace, things like that. And he's able to recognize, what his team needs. That's a big thing for him.
I think that's an excellent point. And one frustration, we love Fats Russell, but the discipline that Ben has may be a huge advantage with going with a similar prototype of the 5'11" small guard.
Yeah. I think that, I don't like to make comparisons with players just because, everybody's their own player. And with Hammond, it's the same thing. But I think one obvious comparison that you have to make is Doug McDaniel at Michigan, just because, Doug tutored Hammond for 2 years before he left Paul VI. And so, they have a lot of similarities and similar characteristics about themselves. They're winners, they're aggressive, they're heady, they're crafty. They have the same size, same play style, kind of. So, they have similar skill sets. But again, they're different. So, yeah.
Is he a 3-star or 4-star? I'm seeing some people say 4-star for Ben. Is he strictly a 3-star right now?
That's the amount of stars that I see. I'm not a big rankings guy, Scott. I don't do the stars or anything like that, but when I see him on these different publications, I usually see 3 stars beside him.
Now, his recruiting list wasn't that high, and I'm a little surprised in a way. Why do you think that happened? I guess the top teams were George Mason and Fordham.
I think it comes to recruiting. The landscape is so much different than it was previously. You got the COVID year, you got the transfer portal. Things are really different now. Maybe 3-4 years ago, Hammond's a guy that would have more offers from different conferences. Who knows? But I was okay with who was recruiting him, and I know that they were seriously recruiting him. A lot of guys, they have a big list beside their name, but it doesn't mean that it's they're being seriously pursued by all of the schools on that list. I think with him,
thank you.
Any school that you see beside his name during his recruitment, they were probably pretty serious about getting him. So I wouldn't worry about anything like that.
Yeah, I think there's 2 lists. There's the correct list, and then there's the embellished list where they throw on a couple. If you just happen to look at the player or make a phone call, then there are
well, you see the list. Sometimes they'll say offers, and then sometimes they'll say offers and interest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a big differentiation there.
I'm gonna look for that. Now, he's a recruiter too. Did you know that, Ben?
Oh, I imagine he is. He's got people to recruit. That's for sure.
Who he recruited? You might know him as a player. Tyrone Farrel. Do you know Tyrone Farrel?
Yeah, from Mount St. Joe's.
Oh, well, your DMV.
Well, I tried.
I thought you would. Tell me a little bit. We'll do a little bonus coverage of Tyrone. We're really excited him defensively, especially.
Yeah. He's a very good defender. Again, another guy that's coming from a winning culture, right? He's coming from Mount St. Joe's, and he can play both sides of the ball as well, right? He's a good defender. He's going to be physically ready to play. He's got a great frame on him, good functional strength. He's putting together the perimeter skills. When he first started, he was a forward, right? He was probably 15 feet and in, but the last year and a half, I've really seen him grow and put together his perimeter skill set as well. And I imagine he'll continue to do so throughout this year, and then as he goes through the summer and he gets ready for next year. But another guy that I really like, he's a really, really big competitor, right? He doesn't back down from anybody. I've seen him, come with some serious intensity, regardless of who's standing in front of him. So he's another guy that's battle tested. He played on the EYBL circuit as well with Team Mello. So, he's just another guy that you guys can look forward to, being able to come in, he's going to compete. And he's going to push his teammates, and he's going to compete for minutes, most likely.
Well, that's who Archie Miller is. That's who we thought we were getting, and that's what we're getting. He was at Dayton, 4 NCAA tournaments.
Yeah.
bunch of champions, and
Great
they were
job.
3-star recruits. He's a 3-star recruit guy, and
Yeah.
he's not backing down with this transfer portal. So I think it doesn't happen overnight, but that's a
Yeah.
pretty good deuce combo between the two. What is Ben's weaknesses? We're talking about all the great things, but his 3-point shot have to get better. I see
It
it
does
goes in when I watch it, but that's highlights.
Yeah, it's the highlights. You're
Yeah.
going to see the makes, right? But
Sure.
that's a good place to start with
Mhm.
deficiencies with Hammond. I think that he's got to get more consistent if he wants to maximize his value, right? Obviously.
Mhm.
I think last season he was somewhere in the mid 20s, in the mid 20%, but he's a low
Okay.
volume shooter right now.
Yes.
But it's wild about him. When you watch him play, he can shoot the ball well enough to keep the defense honest, which is really important. So it aids in his ability to live in the paint like he does and get to his floater game and be a playmaker. So he can break down the defense still because they have to honor the 3-point shot. They're not just playing like Westbrook where they're 10, 15 feet
Yeah.
off. You're not doing that with him. He also has a knack for hitting the big shot. All right. So I've seen him
Mhm.
all the way back when he was a sophomore in the WCAC tournament, and he really stepped up as a scorer. And he is making big 3-point shots. So overall, he definitely needs to improve from that area, especially when he moves up in level, because it's a little longer in distance consistently, and he's not going to have the same open looks every time. Not to say that they're open now, because they're not always, but the shot quality is something that you have to keep in mind when you're moving up in level. So yeah, definitely 3-point percentage. You want to see that increase.
Oh, by the way, he's a 90% foul shooter. Is that
No, I think this year I
a little
saw,
high?
I don't have complete stats, right? So I think I have like
Mhm.
maybe 8 out of 10 of their games. I think he was at 75%.
Okay.
He might, that's missing 2 of the games, but I don't think he's at 90 yet. But he's a good foul shooter. He's dependable.
That we need that. This
Yeah.
year we're really struggling in the 60s a lot of times. So
He's a reliable foul shooter. I think down the stretch, he may miss 1 or 2,
Mhm.
but you want to see him miss maybe just 1, but
Sure.
he's your point guard. You want him at least 80%. I think he's in the high 70s.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I'm sold on that. What do you feel Ben's ceiling as a player is right now? It's a
That's
tough
a
one.
great question. Yeah, it's a good question. I think with Hammond's developmental path, I
Mhm.
think it's reasonable to expect a traditional growth path with him, right? I think, we've talked about when you move up in level that, there's going to be some adjustment periods. There's going to be, getting comfortable. There's going to be some variables that you have to monitor, like fit and opportunity. Is he going to have an opportunity to play through mistakes? And I think that'll be important. And I think that those things will have a big impact on his ceiling as a player, at least over the next 1 to 2 years. But overall, I think that he's going to be an integral contributor to winning for Rhode Island. I think that he's going to be able to run the show for you guys in his, in anywhere from maybe his 2nd to 4th years.
Mhm.
In those areas. I think the first year, again, this adjustment period, he will be a contributor in one way or another. But then in those 2nd to 3rd years, you'll see him really get comfortable and settle in. So I think that by the time he's a senior, you're going to be really happy that he's your point guard.
Maybe
Junior and senior
yeah.
years, yeah.
And people are already saying he's going to be Atlantic 10 Defensive Player of the Year. That's a little bit too much for someone coming in as a freshman.
That's a lot of expectation, but he's a guy that plays well under pressure, so I think he'll be able to handle those types of expectations.
This is my favorite question. Who do you compare him to as a player?
I talked about before Doug McDaniel, his old
Yeah.
teammate. I think that they're different in nature. And, I think McDaniel has a little more ability, but they're very similar in their skill set and the way that they approach the game, right? I think that you're going to get someone that, does the same things that McDaniel does out on the court in terms of playmaking, in terms of pressuring the ball on the defensive end, bringing energy day in and day out. So I would say probably Doug McDaniel, even though, again, I hate the comparison thing, but,
Yeah.
I think that they have very similar skill sets.
I noticed what they say about Ben is that he improves every year. So
Yes.
talking about ceiling, that's a pretty good thing to get better each year.
Yeah. And, it's important, again, from the point guard position, it's important that, when he steps up into the situation that he's stepping up into, that he's able to bring his decision making along with him. It's something that he kind of thrives in. I think last year he had almost a 2.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio. This year he's at maybe 2 to 1. But he's a good decision maker. He's sound on the floor. He makes the simple play when it's there to be made. But then he can also play with a little bit of flair too. So it's a lot of good things with him coming your way.
He doesn't seem like he makes too many turnovers in general, in my observation. Is that something I'm missing, or?
He's got good ball security. I think, when I watched him play most recently down at the City of Palms, he's playing against the number 1 team in the country, the number 3 team in the country, and the number 12 team in the country. Those were the quarterfinal, the semifinal, and then the consolation games. And he's playing against high major guards. He's going, Link Academy, their point guard was going to Kansas. Montverde, their point guard was going to Baylor. IMG, their point guard is a junior who's being pursued most heavily by Michigan and Kentucky. So, he's going against the best. And they are exerting the pressure on him, and he brought it right back to them. So yeah, I agree with you. With Ben, he's going to make some turnovers because he plays fast, right? But he's a fast processor. But mistakes are going to be made, especially when he's going through the adjustment period. I would definitely expect some adversity for him to get through. I think that's very normal in a player's development path, and I would expect that with him too. But with him, he's so mentally tough that he's able to kind of exhibit that fortitude to get through that adversity, and that's where you see him improve, right? As a freshman and a sophomore, he saw limited minutes. As a freshman, he stepped in as a sophomore and played big minutes.
Wow.
And as a sophomore, he maybe he experienced some things at the end of some games that he didn't want to experience again. So when he came in as a junior, you didn't see those same mistakes. And now as a senior, he's the leader along with some of his other teammates because they have other seniors on that team. You're not seeing him make those same mistakes. You're seeing him extremely shorthanded with the ball in the backcourt, as well as running the offense in the front court. You're seeing him make sound decisions under pressure, in traffic, off the live dribble. So, he's just got good qualities that he's going to be carrying along to Rhode Island.
Yeah. I'm thinking sophomore year is going to be his breakthrough season, but you'll see flashes of brilliance in his freshman year. And what strengths does Ben have coming in as a freshman that we could see immediately, even if he doesn't have these solid, consistent games that freshmen rarely have?
I think that it goes back to his intangibles to start, his leadership qualities, his competitiveness, his energy, his consistency, right? But then again, we also talked about his big game experience. As a freshman who's coming in, sometimes it can take a while to adjust to the competition level and to, the bigger scene, right? The greater environment of college basketball itself. Because he's been in the environment that he's been in over the last 4 years, coming from the area that he's coming from, that is just pressure packed all the time. that he'll be well equipped to handle that type of transition. In terms of other strengths that can help from day one, I think, he's growing as a decision maker. We talked about that. He's a big shot and a big playmaker. If they need somebody to come off the bench and give a spark, if that's his role at the time, he's going to be ready to play. He's mentally engaged at all times, whether he's on or off the floor. Then you got somebody that can come in and provide game management if you're in a slower paced game. I know he thrives in fast paced environments, but he's also shown that he can run the half court offense and direct players and make sure that people are where they need to be. So that's what you're getting in a guy like him.
Well, before we go, tell me about Point Guard Eyes. I like your marketing. I'm a marketing guy.
Thank you.
Tell me about the real essentials of what you do.
Yeah. So Point Guard Eyes is a scouting service that's really unique in the space, in that it provides comprehensive evaluations on individual prospects. So as opposed to, me sending out a report every month or so that has a paragraph on 75 to 100 players, I'm sending out, 5,000 words and 100 video clips on one individual prospect at a time. My goal is to really maximize the value that a college coach is going to get from an evaluation. I'm trying to give them everything on a prospect so that they have a much more qualified opinion about them. My thing is always that you read one of my evaluations, it's like watching that prospect play a dozen times. You come away with all that information that you need to make the decision on whether or not you want to seriously pursue that prospect.
And I want everyone to follow Point Guard Eyes on Twitter and Instagram because you're right. And one of your tweets about Ben, this is how I found you. I love the tweet. It had the 3 best players on Paul VI and their recent performance. And guess who liked your tweet? A guy who coached at Team Takeover, and I believe he coached at Paul VI, Mr. Kenny Johnson. That's a good endorsement for you right there.
Coach Johnson. Yep.
So everyone and it's easy. Point Guard Eyes. It's not this name with Tyler.
Spell it out.
49. Yeah, just spell it out. It's exactly what it sounds like. And Tyler, great job today. You got us all very excited, and Atlantic 10 should watch this because we're rooting for each other more than ever, I find. So
yeah,
let's stay in touch and have a great 2024.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks again, Tyler.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.